Day after day, week after week, the Mark Carney government makes promises they are not keeping. They are not following through on any of their campaign promises. Nothing is improving in Canada. All the while, Donald Trump is signing deals with every country on earth and making billions for his country. Welcome back to the Canadian Shield. My name is Sterling. Mark Carney and the Liberal government campaigned on the ability to negotiate a deal with Donald Trump. Now, I told all of you and many of us on the conservative side of the aisle, and I mean, I'm center right, but many of us that are not on the far left, told all of you that electing the Liberals was a horrible idea because they are not going to be able to solve the problem. We understand that the problem isn't so much that Donald Trump has decided to put tariffs. The problem is that Canada does not have an internal economy, and that is why Donald Trump keeps referring to it as the 51st state. This is why other countries can solve the trade negotiation, because they have inside of their own land an economy Canada does not possess. Now, Mark Carney made a big deal and a hoopla about, I'm going to remove the trade barriers between the provinces. Of course, what he didn't tell anybody is that he really had no impact on the trade inside of every province, and who allows what into the provinces at the decision of the premiers, not at the decision of the prime minister. Now we've come along week after week, month after month after month with the Liberal government stalling and going to Europe and taking vacations, now hinting that they want to go into business with China because for some reason, I mean, imagine in your head that he says, we're going to do business with the Europeans. The Europeans are doing business with the Americans. Okay. Then Mark Carney says, I know it's a huge conflict of interest with my portfolio, blind trust, but I'm going to do business with China. And China is desperate to do business with the Americans. So it leaves us, or should leave us, wondering, why is it that Mark Carney doesn't want to do business with the Americans? Why is it, do you imagine, that between Mark Carney and Donald Trump, they simply cannot hammer out a deal? Is it that Mark Carney would prefer to have his investments in China protected? Is it because Donald Trump figures that if he collapses the economy of the country, they will happily join the United States of America, causing the entire North American continent to be, stars and stripes? Is it some idea that I didn't just mention? What I do know for certain is that no matter what you believed in the election, the evidence is now here to see. No matter what you told yourself, whether you believed my side of the aisle or like people that didn't think that Mark Carney, which is like, 43% of the country, who didn't believe that Mark Carney and the Liberal government were a good idea. Or if you were the people that supported the Mark Carney government and told yourself that it was all elbows up and everything was going to be put on, Mark Carney was going to put Donald Trump in his place. He's an economist. He knows how to talk to him. He blah, 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 blah. Now, 6-7 months later, we can see that there's been only one result, that Mark Carney cannot pull it off. That Mark Carney is running up the debts in this country through the roof. Meanwhile, Donald Trump is hammering out deals all over the world. He just hammered out a deal with Australia, which is quite literally on the other side of the planet. Mark Carney talked about how he hammered out a deal with Australia, bought some radar. I mean, like we can't just see it from space. But Donald Trump hammered out billions of dollars in trade between Australia and the United States. We're going to get into that right now. Before I do, though, I want to encourage everybody to like, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell. All right, let's get into this. This is of special interest to Canadians. The other day, Donald Trump adjusted the tariff for heavy-duty and medium-duty vehicles and buses, essentially school buses, adjusting imports of medium and heavy duty vehicles, medium and heavy duty vehicle parts, and buses into the United States. Now, this is a very long draft, a proclamation, and there's a lot in it that just talks about how it was discovered that this is happening and it looks like this. So under subsection of this and section of this, I'm going to get the Secretary of State to do that. It goes on and on like that by paragraph after paragraph. It's quite long, like I said, so I'm not going to read it to you at all. I will read one paragraph that is very important, however. Now, pretty far down the document, all of a sudden, It says, now, therefore, I, Donald Trump, President of the United States of America, by authorized, and then he lists all of the sections, except as otherwise provided in this proclamation, all imports of medium to heavy duty vehicles specified in Annex 1 to this proclamation or in any action designed to address the national security threat found in this proclamation shall be subject to a 25% ad valorem duty rate. Ad valorem is just a fancy way to say what it's worth, not what it cost you, except for the buses and other vehicles classified in the HTSUS heading 807, which shall be subject to a 10% duty rate. These tariffs shall apply to goods entering the consumption or withdrawn from warehouse to consumption on or after 12:01 Eastern Daylight Time, November the 1st, 2025, and shall continue in effect unless such actions are expressly reduced, modified, or terminated. The above tariffs are in addition to any other duties, taxes, fees, extractions, and charges applicable to such products except as otherwise specified herein. And then it just goes on to talk about all of the various specific aspects of it. And that's fine. That's what these documents always look like. They always read this way. Nonetheless, what I want you to see is that it's 25% on top of everything else, and he's going after the parts in any of these vehicles. So what we know from this is we can see that as medium and heavy duty vehicles, the school buses is the school buses. I'm sure there's a lot of people that make those, locally as opposed to being made in Canada. The parts for the buses, though, that's something that they do a lot of in Canada. However, first, Stellantis says I'm moving my Jeeps and my trucks down into the United States, $13 billion investment. Then Donald Trump says I'm putting 25% tariff on anything that's a medium or a heavy duty vehicle. So when the liberals stand up in the House of Commons and they go, we're going to protect those jobs. No, we're not going to protect that manufacturing at all, because you're talking about a ridiculous amount of money that these car manufacturers are going to have to pay out should they have to bring these vehicles across the border. And that, I think we all need to see. Of course, there's an exemption for all that are currently under the Kuzma arrangement. This proclamation only makes me feel that Donald Trump, more now that Donald Trump is not going to renew the Kuzma agreement. Before I forget, all links will be in the description. Now, Donald Trump's White House released a statement called the National Forest Products Week, and he did it on October 20th, 2025. And it basically talks about how everybody that works in the forest industry is great and American timber is going to, be super duper and wonderful. It's part of the third paragraph that I want to draw to your attention. To harness the full power of our nation's bountiful forests, my administration is working tirelessly to reverse the barriers imposed by the previous administration that crushed our economy and stifled innovation. Earlier this year, I signed the executive order to increase domestic timber production, enhance our forest management, reduce wildfire risks, and decrease reliance on timber imported from foreign producers. I'll say that last one again. And decrease reliance on timber imported from foreign producers. Then the letter goes on to talk about other things that he's done to keep the water clean and cut red tape. When he says reduce reliance on foreign producers, do you imagine in your mind that he's thinking of Cuba? I'm pretty sure he means Canada. And so we have to see that when he increased the tariffs, it's because he knew that he was going to be making this statement. He knew that he had gotten to the point where he could start to produce things made with American wood, made with American timber. And our government does nothing. Our government has not done anything to increase the probability of making things in Canada with Canadian timber, with Canadian lumber. I mean, we have a need for houses running around all everywhere. Of course, the federal government doesn't want us to build houses. They want to build it in the same 3 factories, put it on the back of a truck, and hope that it doesn't get all warped and twisted from the weather and the moisture. And for some reason in their mind, they think that you're going to you cannot make a foundation centrally. You have to make that in the spot. I mean, it's ridiculous to think that we sit on all of this timber. 93% of this country is covered in timber the last time I checked, which was just around the time when Mark Carney was talking about this, centralized housing idea that he has, which is, of course, never going to work. However, we have timber producers who need somebody to buy the timber. So really what we should be doing, if the Americans stop us from selling our timber into their market because the government subsidizes them. That means that the government should be giving timber to anybody that wants to build a house anywhere. Now, of course, Mark Carney's not going to do that because he needs to have central control. He's very much like a person from the left who thinks everything has to be controlled by the same three people. We have, as a country, need to see that we have everything we need to fix our own problems, and the biggest thing we need to do to fix our problems is get the Liberal government out of the way and repeal those 9 laws that they enacted with the help of the NDP to get in the way. I know the far left media and Doug Ford and all of them are like, no, the American economy is going to collapse any second now. No, Donald Trump, the government shut down. Everybody's losing their minds. So we see that he's got automotive, it's booming, and it's booming to the point where he can safely impose more tariffs to ensure that domestic manufacturers can sell their product inside of a market that is essentially wholly domestic, making it they can afford it. So there's no Chinese subsidies on their vehicles, there's no undercutting on wages, that sort of thing. Same now is held true for timber. So he's got steel, aluminum, and timber. Check. Of course, because we don't develop our fuel in Canada because the Liberal government has those 9 laws in the way, Donald Trump is the only country buying our fuel. And as it turns out, gas prices hit a 4-year low under President Trump. 4-year low. So 4-year low, that's right in the center of the lockdown. No? Now the Americans are, okay, I'll read a little bit to you because I want you to understand just how much lower. The Americans are seeing some of the lowest prices in gas pumps in more than 4 years as President Donald J. Trump's relentless commitment to American energy production pays off. Gas Buddy, which I'm going to assume is a website that just reports gas prices all over. I've never been there, but here it is in the article nonetheless. Not the article, the statement. The nationwide average for gasoline has dropped to $2.98 per gallon, the lowest average intraday prices in 4 years, with prices expected to remain that way for the foreseeable future. So just to remind everybody, there are 4 liters in a gallon, almost 3.78 liters in a gallon. And if you're Canadian, all you got to think about is when you buy one of them bags of milk, that's a gallon of gas. And when you buy one of the skinny cartons, the tall skinny cartons, that's a liter of gas. So when you go to the store and you're paying it, or to the gas station, you're paying $1.50, you're paying it for that carton, that skinny, taller one, the thinner one, but it's the taller one. And when they go to the pump, they're paying less than $3 for that giant bag, which is about 75 cents a liter. And when was the last time fuel in Canada was under $1? Anybody can tell me that. I'm sure it's probably 20 years. Currently, 35 states have an average gas price below $2.99, and Gas Buddy even recorded the first $1.99 cash price at a station in Evans, Colorado, with stations in Oklahoma and Texas not far behind. Barring any major disruption, gas prices likely to remain slightly below year-ago levels and could stay under $3 for much of the next few months. So in the wintertime, they're going to have gas that's going to be, $1.99, that's 50 cents a liter. 50 cents a liter. They can give it to the people that are driving cars 50 cents a liter, that are driving these trucks 50 cents a liter. These guys can go driving all over the place for 50 cents a liter, and they can still make money in the gas station. Probably because the Canadian government, or Alberta, is pumping as much gas down into the Americans as we can get our hands on top of the fact that the Americans got a lot of gas coming in from other places, and they're doing their own domestic drilling, and they have more drilling out in the Gulf of America, and they have shale going, and they have all kinds of fuel production, energy prices going. And of course, this is something that is overlooked when we talk about getting another pipeline or another 4 pipelines out of this country, that we would have more fuel for our domestic supply, which of course would permit us to get prices down under $1 a liter. 50 cents a liter is ridiculous. I can't, that was a long time ago that it was 45 cents a liter in Canada. And now what is it? And what is it in your region? You can leave it down in the comments, but I am sure that it's well over $1.25, $1.30. So we're almost paying twice as much per liter, which, if you're at $1, let's just call it even the benefit of the doubt, $1.25 national average. That would be $5 a gallon. Not $3 a gallon, not $1.99 a gallon, $5 a gallon. So you can see and our money ain't worth as much. So really, again, the liberal government is not helping us live a better standard of living. The liberal government is not helping us with all of these laws that they have in the way. The liberal government is not elbows up. And so far, Mark Carney's prediction that the American economy will collapse within 2 months because of the policies of Donald Trump seems to have fallen flat. It seems that Donald Trump has oil, steel, and timber well under control, and the average, ordinary, everyday person in the United States of America is feeling the benefits. Not the rich 5% up here, Mark Carney and his close personal friends. Nope, the average ordinary individual down here in the lower middle, upper middle class, these guys are having a great old time. These people are gaining the benefits of Donald Trump's decision, and Donald Trump has never met them in his life, but every action that he's making is providing them with a better standard of living, providing them with a more affordable economy. How can you want me to believe that the economy is failing, like you'll hear them try to say in Doug Ford and you'll try to say in the House of Commons, when the fuel that drives the economy is the cheapest it's been in so long, and it's only 50 cents a liter? If we had gas at 50 cents a liter in Canada, our prices would drop right overnight. Of course, the biggest thing that Donald Trump has done in the last week is secured a trade deal with Australia. Now, you heard the Australian government run around, the same as Mark Carney and the same as the British, talking about how Donald Trump's trade deal was a big bad thing and everything was horrible and all the rest of that. And yet Britain made the deal 2 times, and Australia has now hammered out a deal 2. And Canada still has nothing. And I think we can take away from this the fact that Mark Carney is not the man for the job, and that the liberal government is no way, shape, or form improving the standard of living in this country. However, we'll cover that indifferently. Let's talk about now. There are 2 releases coming out of this negotiation with Australia, and one of them is strictly dealing with critical minerals. So I'm going to talk about that one first, because in the other one, there are some staggering numbers, and some of the things that the Australians are buying and the amounts that they're paying are something that Canadians need to hear, because Mark Carney is not doing any of it. United States-Australia framework for securing of supply in the mining and processing of critical minerals and rare earth. Now, processing is something that this is going to get the Chinese attention, this processing. It's one thing to have all of these electronics companies move into the United States, Apple, LG, the chipset makers that are all coming into the United States. But China could say to themselves, well, I still have all the supply of the critical minerals, so they're going to have to be buying their stuff from me. So they're going to have to leave manufacturing in China. Now the Americans are manufacturing their own critical minerals. They got to deal with Australia. They purchased 2 Canadian companies, or parts of. They're doing their best to drive dump trucks full of money into Greenland, which of course is a little bit of a complicated thing, but nonetheless, they are getting the attention of the people on the ground there. They are now in bed with Australia. They got critical mineral deals with all kinds of places. They're doing their best to get them out of Alaska. This processing means that the Americans can put the Chinese out of business, means that the Americans can provide you with all of the stuff you need to do all of your manufacturing, which of course will put the Chinese out of business. And that's why the Chinese played the card of the rare earth minerals just a couple of weeks back. And I'm sure that Mark Carney's going to try to, say, oh, no, when he comes back. But the fact that Mark Carney won't do business with the United States of America and thinks Canada should get in bed with China and Europe is a really big flag for me. Now that we've established that, let's zip over to the fact sheet. We can hear the rest of the deal, or at least some snapshots of it. Fact sheet: Donald J. Trump closes billion-dollar deals with Australia. With Australia, not the country that he shares a border with. No, because the Liberal government refuses to sign a deal, because the Liberal government made promises they can't keep, and they would rather stall Canadians than to sign a deal that's never going to be beneficial, and then have even the elbows up crowd turn against them, who any second now is going to turn against them anyway, because they got to fly to Florida, and then it'll change their whole position once they're down there. Anyway, achieving critical mineral and energy dominance. So the U.S. and the Australian governments intend to invest more than $3 billion together in critical mineral projects in the next 6 months, with recoverable resources in the project estimated to be $53 billion. $53 billion. That's how much money they can make off critical minerals. And the federal government in Canada has drafted 9 pieces of legislation that refuse to allow us to get it out of the ground. And if we do know where it is, it takes us 10 to 15 years to get the permission to start digging. Export-Import Bank of the United States is issuing 7 letters of interest for more than $2.2 billion in financing unlocking up to $5 billion total investment to advance critical mineral and supply chain security projects between our two countries. That means that somebody's going to give them some money to build the processing and to build the special planes that fly it back and forth and all the rest of that. The U.S. Department of War will invest and construct a 100 metric ton per year advanced gallium refinery in Western Australia, further advancing self-reliance in critical mineral processing. So the American government is going to go into Australia and build a 100 metric ton per year advanced gallium refinery. Are they building one in Northern Ontario? No. Are they building one in the Ring of Fire? No. Why would they do that? That would mean that we'd have to cut down a tree. Mark Carney doesn't want that. But Australia, sure, no problem. Come on in. You got the investment. We will take all the gallium we can get our hands on. Mark Carney's not the person for the job, guys. Deepening defense cooperation. Australia committed to enhance burden sharing and to make a new defense investment that will bolster the U.S.-Australian alliance. So when you hear Mark Carney talking about how the Australians and Canada are going to make a new deal with these radar, well, Australia has agreed to purchase $1.2 billion in Anduril unmanned underwater vehicles and take delivery of the first tranche of Apache helicopters in a separate deal for $2.6 billion. $2.6 billion in Apache helicopters and unmanned drones for under the water. Excellent stuff. I mean, it'd be great if Canada could have those things, but good for the Americans that they can sell it to somebody. Since February, Australia has contributed $1 billion to the U.S. government to expand and modernize the U.S. submarine industrial base, with another $1 billion by the end of the year. Together, they are strengthening the Australia, United Kingdom, United States trilateral security partnership to meet the challenges of tomorrow. Australia is investing significantly in the integrated air and missile defense capabilities, including $2 billion in U.S. companies for joint air battle management system. Come on, man. I mean, where's Carney in all of this? Nowhere to be found. When he runs up and down talking about how he's going to be selling our aluminum and our steel into all of these trade arrangements. Come on, let's be serious. Let's just be honest with ourselves. Australia's given every nickel. The UK is given every nickel, given all the stuff that they have to get their hands on the technology and the resources that the Americans have at their fingertips. While we in Canada get crammed into 15-minute cities, does that sound like the standard of living that you wanted when you cast your vote? Or did you tell yourself that people like me didn't know what we were talking about, and here we are 6 months later saying, I told you so? The U.S.-Australia alliance is securing munitions supply chain resilience under Australia's guided weapons and explosive ordnance enterprise, building on a streamlined export cooperation which will directly support more than 200 manufacturing suppliers in Texas, Florida, Arkansas, and Alabama. Australia is promoting economic prosperity and technology cooperation, which I think what we just read is a lot of economic prosperity. Nonetheless, Australia's Super Nation Fund will increase investment in the U.S. to $1.4 trillion by 2035. So within the next 10 years, they're going to up the amount of money they're putting in the United States to $1.44 trillion. I mean, this is just a huge number, no? An increase of almost $1 trillion from the current levels. This unprecedented investment will create tens of thousands of new, high-paying jobs for Americans. The United States recently secured expanded access to U.S. beef in Australia. So not only is the Australian government doing that, they're allowing the Americans to put a lot of beef into their market. And of course, Australians have a lot of their own beef, some of the largest farms in the world, or ranches, in the world. I mean, in Australia, they herd cattle with helicopters. It's not a guy on a horse. It's not like a cowboy. It's a helicopter. It's a pilot. NASA and Australia Space Agency signed a framework agreement to strengthen civil space and aeronautics cooperation. The United States and Australia agreed to develop and launch bilateral technology prosperity deal to establish joint initiatives and cooperate and invest in AI, quantum, and other critical technologies. So let's just recap that, shall we? We got AI, we got electricity, we got munitions, we got unmanned underwater drones, which, you know, how fun would it be to drive one of those? We have missiles, we have mining, we have critical mineral development, critical mineral processing. The amount of money is in the trillions of dollars. And Mark Carney says to you, no, it's better for us if we do deals with China. Mark Carney says to you, no, it's better for us if we do deals with the Europeans. It's funny, however, all Mark Carney has been able to secure is a couple of memorandums of understanding with a couple of countries who immediately are doing business with Donald Trump, who immediately are doing business with the United States of America. Because one of the things that the United States of America is developing larger and larger with every passing minute is much more money, much more of an economic powerhouse, because they are developing more, which means that they have more jobs, which means that there are people paying more taxes. It's the Walmart school of business, right? You don't make a lot of money individually. You don't get a lot of taxes individually, but everybody's working. So you get a truckload of investment. You get a truckload of taxes, which translates into a lot of money. This is the beauty of the capitalist system, as opposed to the Marxist system where they're always struggling. I mean, think of the fact that we always talk about how much the population of India is, but they don't have any money, or they don't. They're getting there now, but historically they don't really have a lot of a booming economy. I get that they're doing under Modi. They're making a lot of improvements. Nonetheless, up to historically, they've had a lot of people, but they don't have a lot of prosperity because, they weren't working under the capitalist system. The same holds true for China. I mean, how can you tell me there's 1 billion people in the country, but they have a struggling economy and they can't build anything beyond bridges and railway stations to make that will last, that last with any length? I mean, they have literally put up towns, there's nobody living in them to keep people working, I suppose. Keep people working and, to have the illusion that there's a lot of investment in the country. The point I'm making is that if they were capitalists instead of being communists, they'd be making all kinds of money. They manufacture everything there, and yet they're still quite poor. So that's really weird in my mind. And then there's countries where they don't manufacture anything beyond oil, and they're some of the richest and strongest dollars in the entire world. I know that Mark Carney is a big fan of Marx. I've read his book Values. I know that Mark Carney thinks that we should all be living, in this Marxist utopia, though he doesn't want to be included in that. He wants to live at the top of the pile with his private jets and his, gigantic mansions and all the rest of the stuff that comes along with the kind of money that he's generated or that he's hoping to generate more of. But Donald Trump's America is helping people like me and you. It's just helping regular people get jobs. Think of the young people coming out of school or getting ready to go into school and all of the possibilities for fair education that are been laid out with the critical minerals, the metals, the automotive, the manufacturing of jets and helicopters and munitions and subs and all the things that require like that people can do, whether you got a lot of technology, a lot of training as an engineer, or you are the guy that welds. Welding is a good job. Don't misunderstand me. But I'm saying it's a lot of hands-on training, welding. It's not necessarily let me go to 4 years of university and so on and so forth. So you're covering a wide range of job types in this sort of scenario that I'm laying out for you. All the while, when you get off work, gas is pretty inexpensive, which means food is pretty inexpensive, which means the house you buy is pretty inexpensive, which means that everybody is happy. Everybody's living a decent life, middle class life, which is great for most people. I mean, when you see most people crawling across the earth to get to North America, to get to the free world, the dream they have in their head is the middle class lifestyle. It's not the rich and the famous lifestyle, though that I'm sure crosses their mind, but the one that they're targeting, the one that they're shooting for, the one that they're going to try to hope to give to their children. It's a solid middle class lifestyle with a car and a house, their own property, and everybody is happy inside of the house and so on and so forth. Even as you hear my voice, are you not telling yourself that sounds just fine? That sounds spectacular. Well, how come it is that we didn't allow for the Mark Carney government or we didn't enforce or ensure that the government, the Liberal government, the Mark Carney government provided that to Canadians, gave that to Canadians, is in the process of giving that to Canadians, because none of that is happening. We have food bank usage that is the highest it's ever been in the history. 1 in 4 in Canada are utilizing the food bank, and 33% of the country is technically living under the poverty level. 33%. Meanwhile, countries that are embracing capitalism are pulling the people out of poverty by the millions. Donald Trump has secured a deal with Argentina. Donald Trump has secured deals with most of the planet except for Canada. Is it Trump? Is it Carney? Does it matter? To me and you, do we really care? I know that we could get around it. I know that we could solve the problem. We could literally, quite literally, copy much of what Donald Trump is doing because we have all of the same things that he's utilizing to take care of it. We have steel, we have fuel, we have timber. Those are the three big ones. That's why they were secured first. I mean, it's a plan, right? It's not the hectic chaos that they'll make you want to believe. They're relying on you not understanding it, not seeing it for what it is. Perhaps they don't see it for what it is. That is not my point. I'm trying to get you to understand that we need to start to put pressure on this government to produce, to give us results. I don't want to wait till November 4th for results. I don't want to wait for this, that, and the other thing. I'm tired of waiting. It's been 10 years the Liberal government has promised me that improvements are coming just around the corner. And yet every time a butterfly flaps its wing in Tokyo, for some reason the Liberal government can't accomplish what they said they were going to do. We need a country that's got leadership that's going to make results. We need a country that's got leadership that is going to follow through on the things that they say they're going to do, like Donald Trump said he was going to do, and now he has done it. 6 months later, people in America can look around and can say, hey, wait a minute, he said he was going to do it, and he did it. Can we say the same about Mark Carney? Can we say the same about anything that the Liberal government has said? I'll leave that to your discretion. You can let me know down in the comments. I'm going to wrap here. Thank you for listening. I'll talk to you next time.